Chapter 8. The Lower Worlds. The darkest regions that the dreamer may fall to are known as the lower worlds, or the place where nobody has to stay. These horrid regions are situated below the earths and are also created in relation to them. As they are so created, they are also temporary and subject to destruction upon the extinguishing of their utility. The lower worlds are inhabited by those who have been cast down for transgressions in the endless or mortal realms. The intent of such places is both to punish and to rehabilitate the inhabitants. The worlds are arrayed in a very similar fashion to the place where everyone has to go, but as if it had been reflected in a mirror. It is a subtle place, wherein the subtle principles apply, the body is not gross, it does not require maintenance, and the reins of the mind are let loose. Above this gives the dwellers of the higher realms the conditions for a life of creation and joy. Below it is the field of subtle tortures for the body and mind. To reject the authority of the One is to find oneself in this place. To desire to live in darkness is likewise. It is said that in the lower worlds anything and everything goes. In that place, those who are of a similar nature are cast down in the same regions, and find themselves among their wayward peers. People do not often suffer more than 1 terrestrial year in the lower worlds, most often a sufficient duration to turn the head of a fallen dreamer, with most departing long before even this. Yet there are those who wander those wretched places for ages, dragging the consequences of their actions with them. It is true that those who care for the condemned can descend to that place and bring them back to a higher region. Thus, a fallen soul must truly be bereft of all goodwill to remain for great lengths of time in such places. There are regions in that realm where there are many people together, sharing their sentence in the same prison. As it were, the nature and severity of their offences being similar, and the required punishment likewise. Whereas there are also other places that are completely purpose-built for the sufferer, usually by an endless, with some stake in the affair. In such a place, the transgressor must suffer a personal nightmare built on the behaviours that drew him to that place. Those things that he inflicted on others are brought to light and inflicted back on him. In rare cases, one may end up in such a place not so much for their own sake, but on account of another. When one is very close to another, there is a diluting of being, so to say, such that the truth of one reflects on the truth of another. To know something about another means to know it about oneself. For the greatest part, it is the wickedness of the individual that is the catalyst for the descent to the lower worlds. The nature of the inhabitants of that place is very wicked, cunning, and deceitful. They taunt, they humiliate, they torture, they imitate, and they betray. The extent of the fallen, the sins that brought them down, and their conduct in that realm cannot be noted in detail. But here I give examples that are a testament to the dark dealings in the place where nobody has to stay. Some, finding themselves in those regions, and upon sighting company down there, will befriend others on the pretext that they are like-minded and stuck in the same predicament. Once the victim has let his guard down, the true nature of the perpetrator is revealed. The assailant rails him with subtle tortures and brings him under subjugation. Equally likely is that the victim was plotting the same, and thus he turns on the other and inflicts pain on him too. Creativity is not exclusive to the other realms. The pains inflicted on others can be quite inventive despite their evil nature. To force another to stack shelves with boxes continuously and monotonously for days or weeks on end, whilst recounting to the victim in excruciating detail all the vile deeds that land the assailant in that realm, is but one example. Although the lower worlds partakes in variety, the realm shares these conditions. It is cold. Even in the sunlight it is not comfortable. It is loud. The sounds of its inhabitants are distress, and the ambient noise is painful. What is owned is not secure. The body and mind are not safe. Bad company is ubiquitous and sleep elusive. There are places that are like museums of the most bizarre, grotesque, and shocking creations that the mind could fathom. They defy description, and seeing them, one wonders how such things could come about, and wishes never to see them again. As with the perfect world, the fine atmosphere is linked intimately with the state of mind of the dreamer, and in the variety of painful, difficult, and confusing states of mind available to him, in the place where nobody has to stay, no other realm can compare. There are states that can be passed through where your train of thought never touches the ground. That is to say, it becomes simply a bizarre string of odd concepts and unsettling thoughts, never landing on anything solid or comfortable. One may endure this for a few minutes without too much distress, but if it were to go on for hours, days, or weeks, it is a heavy mental torture. Some have resided in such places for so long that they have been moulded by its character, and there are even those that live in such places of their own volition. Some beings simply cannot live anywhere else on account of their behavior. The most black-hearted revel in giving pain to others, and therefore simply cannot be tolerated in the other realms. For instance, those who use the art of hypnosis to torment and torture. Such behavior drives all other beings away, and hence the lower worlds are the most fitting dwelling for people who behave in this way. Even such beings are driven by their nature to where they belong. Among these, there are two classes of beings that can be sought out in the harrowing underbelly of reality. These are the hitmen and the ones who get what they want and then leave. The hitmen are expert in taking souls out of bodies. Sometimes a person becomes so antagonistic to the purposes of another that the only recourse is to remove them from the body at any cost. But if the dispute is across realms, or the concerned party does not want to be associated with such an action, then a third party must be involved. Whether by subtle force, that is pulling the victim out against their will, or by influencing their bodies to catastrophically break down, or by directing an accident to befall them in their world, or by influencing another to take their life, they are infamous for their skill in taking beings out for a price. Finally, in the bowels of the self live the ones who get what they want and then leave. This class of beings, among all in reality, have the most wicked of hearts. These are the ones who feed off the pain and suffering of other beings without remorse. They are without form, they say they have gone beyond the need for them, but their presence is undeniable. Their power rivals the highest creators, but, in its essence, it could not be more distinct from theirs. Their energy is completely flat and painfully dull, an energy that absorbs all others, whilst itself remaining unchanged. The Endless devote their entire being to using the force in their possession to newly creative, protective, and high-minded ends, whereas these beings use all their mental powers on special forms of hypnotizing that draw out all the most painful, repressed, and shameful thoughts buried in the heart of others, which they then turn on their victims. In addition to this, they are artful not only in drawing out the darker states of mind, but also giving them to others, holding them in spaces wherein they feel the worst feelings imaginable. A particular favourite is the feeling of having lost everything, all paths having come to a dead end, and one is about to take his own life as the only recourse. The ones who get what they want and then leave are not partial to naming themselves beyond this title. If they do, they often have mononyms that are indicative of their dark inclinations, such as despair. This class often forms small groups and travel together, in packs as it were, of like-natured hunters. This is the only true company they can keep, as even the energy that radiates from them alone is unbearable to all other classes of beings, especially those of the higher realms, who would do near anything to stay away from them. In keeping with the polarized nature of their relationship, these beings cannot stand any merriment or gaiety. They abhor any happy sentiments. Whilst they themselves are not unhappy per se, they simply do not see reality as an arena for joy. They prefer to see other beings in tears at their own misfortune. This is their joy and sustenance. Beyond this, their aversion is even stronger for any talk of the self or love thereof. If they even encounter a passing reference to the love of the mother, they will try and leave such a place immediately. Below the lower worlds sits the abyss. It is lowest of all. It is the place of the greatest torment. It is pure darkness. One awakening there will not and cannot understand anything. If the hand is seen in front of the face, there is no knowledge of what it is, and there is no faculty to gain that knowledge. Yet the innate desire to understand remains. This is the case with every thought, every perception, in every moment. It is not a lucid state of no knowledge, wherein what is relative is negated absolutely, nor it is the unmanifest reality. In the abyss, there is no illumination to shine upon anything, and the result is excruciating pain of such a unique nature. It is the seat of the ego. The evil one is the negation of reality. He is a program whose function is unreality itself. He is inversion and he is misery. He is weakness, fear, deception, imitation, and envy. Necessarily he is a split, a mirroring in the mind of the one to himself. The utility of the ego is such that it can frame that which otherwise would not be, that is untruth. As a woman, this program is the femme ego.